Hello everyone, my name is Natalia Lauk and this is tutorial for Level 1 Theory and Oral Skills Examination, Certificate of Achievement. I hope this one is going to help you out to move more quickly through those exams and understand how they're working. So the first task is note namings, and if you know your note placement, you always should do well. But before we do that, I'm just going to remind you that we call this clef an F clef. And the line, do you see this line between two dots? So this one is always F. So we always also call this clef F clef. So let's say if the note is above that, how, for example, here, right? So what is the next note to F when you go up and you just use the alphabet F? G, right? So this one is going to be G. So similar to F clef, we also have so-called G clef. And do you see how it's going around this particular line? So this second line, we call it G line, right? So in this case, if you follow the second line, do you see this note that's above second line? So if on the second line is G, above that, what is it going to be? Remember, the musical alphabet starts A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it starts again on A. So after G, if we keep going up, this one is going to be A, right? So in this way, you can count almost all the notes. This one is going to be a little bit tricky because it's so far, but just remember that this note, the last, or you can call it the first line, right? That's our G note. So below that note is going to be F, right? Below F is going to be E. Below E is going to be D. So this note is what? Go ahead and try to figure that out, okay? I think that should be pretty easy. So let us move on to the next task. So intervals are pretty easy to do. All you have to do is count lines and spaces. So for this one, you're going to be counting, this is the first note is on the line, right? So that's going to be 1. Then you have a space, that's going to be 2. Then you have line again, that's going to be 3. Then you have space again, you have 4. And then you have line again, that's 5. So this is interval of 5. So just use this. The only tricky part is when you have the ledger notes like this, for example. Just remember, so this note is on the space, so that's your 1. Then the ledger line is going to be your 2. Then another space is going to be your 3. Then this one is going to be 4. So keep counting, you'll get the interval right, okay? So let's keep going. Keyboard note, circle the key on the keyboard that matches the each note. Okay, so remember the flats are taking notes half step down or half step to the left, right? So basically if you look at the middle C and suddenly you see a flat next to it, right? So here's the middle C, right? And if you see flat in front of that, you have to go half step to the left. So without this flat, that note would be right here. But with the flat, that note goes right here, right? And if, for instance, instead of a flat, you have in front of C, you have sharp, like this, okay? That takes this note up here, okay? So it's a C sharp in this case, half step up. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so first of all, you have to find the note, and then you have to find where does it take, where the flat or sharp does it take you, right? That's basically it. Okay, should be pretty easy, hopefully. Okay, but let's actually try the first one, right? Because it's always tricky when you just learning the names. Okay. So let's look at the first one. Remember, we in F clef, this one, the bass clef, so this is F. And if you remember, this line is G line, the bass G, right here, very low. So if that's G, that's A, that's B, but it's not just B, but it's B flat, right? So that's why it's not circled here because the B would be here, but it's right here because it's a B flat. Okay, so the next one, if you're not looking at the sharp, it's on the third line, right? And you know if this is G, then this is A, that's B, That's C. What is this one? Do you think you know? And also that's supposed to be sharp, right? So if you start counting from G, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the next one, right? And then you have sharp, which takes it to the right. So you will circle this part, okay? So try to complete it on your own. Keep just going. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Triads. Write the name of each of the triads below and indicate the major or minor. Okay, so for this one, it's better to know circle of fifths, but there's also an easier way to tell as well, okay? So all you have to do is to know the first two notes of the chord, okay? And in this case, so you have C major, so the first note is C, second note right here is E, and then, I mean, top note, it matters as well, so, but just know it's G, right? So, as long as you have between the first note, this one, and this one, two whole steps, and I should remind you what whole step is. Whole step when you have, so whole step is when you have one key in between, right? So for example, between this and this note is a whole step, right? Between this and this note is a whole step. But when you don't have a key in between, for example, like here, between this and this one, it's only a half step. Okay, so as long as you have two whole steps, for example, from C, right, middle C, to E in this case, so that's going to be major, okay, and you can always use it as a tool. So let's look at this one. So the first note in this case is E, right? So you're going to write E, and now you have to figure out what is the distance between this one and this one. So, and you know on the second line is G, but because it's sharp, it's going to be G sharp. So if you look at this part, right? So let me actually erase it so I can show it a little bit better, okay? So you've got E, this is your note, right? And then you have this note, right? G sharp. So if you look the distance between this one and this one, that's your whole step. And between this one and this one, that's another whole step. So you have two, oops, you have two whole steps. That's telling you that's a major, okay? So that's a fast way to tell. In this case, that's going to be G, E major, okay? So go ahead, try to do this one and all of the rest using this. So remember, you need two whole, oops, that's not how it's written, whole steps. Two whole steps between the first two notes. In this case, it's this one, this one, this one, this one, okay, this one. So hopefully that makes sense. So let me erase this part so it's not mixing you up a little bit, okay? Let's keep going. Oh, wait a second. I think I skipped all the way down. I skipped the number 4. Okay, so actually number 4 is a little bit easier because you have the scale patterns. And again, for this one, you only need one little thing. You need to look at the second and third note and decide if it's a whole step or a half step, okay? So the first note is going to be the name of your scale pattern, okay? So in this case, this first note is E, right? And now the second and third note is F sharp and G sharp, right? So if you look at the keyboard, I'm going to go back a little bit. Wait a second. There's a keyboard actually right here, right? So you have the first note was E right here. Then you had F sharp and G sharp right there. So between F sharp and G sharp, there's a whole step, okay? So as long as there's a whole step, so that's actually telling you that that's a major pattern, okay? So you're gonna write A major, okay? So go ahead and try all of them, okay? So that's what you need to decide. You need to find those notes and keep in mind that this is that changes to bass clef. That changes to bass clef or F clef, right? So if otherwise you have a chance to make a mistake like calling this note B, but it's not B because you're in the bass clef and this note is actually D, right? So keep that in mind. Let's keep moving. See what else? Okay, I just explained this one. Remember, for this one you have to just figure out that it's two whole steps between those two first notes, right? Or if it's a less, for example, it's a whole step and then it's a half step, like for example in this case, right here. Then it's going to be a minor. Okay, let's keep moving and see what else we've got here. Ooh, key signature. So for this one, I have to explain circle of fifths. There is a faster way to do that, to figure out key signatures, but we're gonna go the longer way, okay? And first of all, for that, we're gonna draw a circle of fifths that helps you to understand the how the key signatures work. So, but before we do that, we're gonna write following thing: F, C, G, D, A, E, B. And that's basically, first of all, it's order of sharps. It goes this way. And if you start from B and go to the left, that's going to be order of flats. Okay, that's it. Okay, that's the first thing we need. The another thing we need a circle, because it's a circle of fifths. Okay, and I'm going to kind of enlarge it so it's you can see it a little bit better. Not very good circle, right? And we're going to draw down the line, stay in the center like this. Okay, and we're going to start at 11 o'clock and write F, then C, then G, then D. A is going to be right here, is going to be right here, B is going to be at 5 o'clock. Okay, so that's the first part of circle of fifths. And remember, on the left side we have flat keys, on the right side we have sharp keys, and down here we have keys with lots of flats and lots of sharp. So just remember F, C, G, D, A, E, B. F, C, G, D, A, E, B. That's all you have to remember. And sometimes you can use, instead of F, C, G, D, A, E, B, you can think Father Christmas gave Daddy an electric blanket or something like this. Well, I think it's easier to remember F, C, G, D, A, E, B. That's a fine thing as well. Okay, and at the very center, right there, that's your 0, because C major doesn't have any sharps or flats. It's just 0. If you start going to the right, it's going to be 1 sharp. G major, key signature, has 1 sharp, which is F sharp. Okay. D major has 2 sharps, F and C. A has 3, E has 4, B has 5, okay? And if you start going to the left from C, so go back to C and go to the left, so you have actually 1 flat. So F major has 1 flat, B flat in this case. And let's see if you have any minors in this case. Yes, you do have some minors, okay? And the same, do you see how it starts on F? So this progression is always going to be the same. So what are you going to do to figure out like minor key signatures? You're going to start on, let's say, kind of 8 o'clock, I would say. Yep, let's call it 8 o'clock. And it's going to be, inside of the circle, you're going to write lowercase f, F, then lowercase c, F, C, and then same thing, G, F, C, G. D is going to go right here, and then you're going to write A right here, F, C, G, A. So what is the next one? E, lowercase e, and the last one is going to be B. Here are your minors, okay? So, and do you see how F and D are kind of in the same place? So F major and D minor, they're both going to have 1 flat, B flat. Okay, now let's look at this one more carefully. So you have a major here and you have 1 flat. Using your circle of fifths, go ahead. So let me actually enlarge it a little bit. So do you see, if you go to the left from C, you have a key with 1 flat, which is F major. So you're going to write F major. Go ahead and try using circle of fifths. Try to figure out the rest, okay? And be careful about this one, because this one is minor, so you have to look inside of the circle, not outside, okay? And this one has 0 sharps or flats. So you have to find a minor that has 0 sharps or flats. So you have to start looking around this area, right? But inside of the circle, not outside. So figure out the rest, this one and this one. Okay, the same thing we're using to solve number 7. Add sharps or flats to the left. All the notes to create scales, be sure to observe clefs. Okay, clefs, we're talking about G clef or treble clef and bass clef, like this one. Okay, again, we would need our circle of fifths. So look at the circle of fifths. You have that says G major. Let's find G major on the circle of fifths. It's right there, right there. So G is right here. It has 1 sharp, right? Oops, cannot see. Yes, it has 1 sharp. So in this sharp, we always start on the beginning of this Father Christmas gave Daddy an electric blanket, or F C G D. So it has F sharp. So basically, what are you going to do? You're going to need to find F and put sharp in front of that. Well, that's pretty easy if you know notes and alphabet. You know G major starts with G. The next note is going to be A, then B, C, D, E. Oh, here's your F. So you're going to put F sharp right in front of that, okay? So go ahead and try next one, which is F major. And for F major, remember, it has 1 flat, right? And in this case, if you remember F, C, G, D, A, E, B, so order of flats always starts on the right side. So you start with B. So you have to find B. So F, what is the next one? G, A. So keep going, you'll find your B, right? And you have to put a flat in front of that. So try to figure out D major on your own. Let's keep going. Let's solve the primary triads, right? The primary triads, called primary triads because, well, because we use them the most often. Let's say if we were to sing happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Do you see? Do you hear those chords? All I used primary triads in F major. Okay, so remember in Roman numerals that means 1. In Roman numerals that means 4, and that means 5. Okay, it looks like a palm, open palm, so with a 5 finger. So let's see. So just remember those are mean those numbers. Okay, and so what is your first step in F major? Well, that's easy because in F major first step is F. So where's your F? Remember, if you know your notes only from middle C, you can still figure it out. Okay, so middle C is right here. D is right here, E is right here. Here you go. Your F is right there. Okay, so I'm going to erase the rest because you don't need that. And all you need to do is to add 2 more notes to that. And all those notes are going to be skips. Okay, so you're going to skip from F to A and from A to C. That's how it's going to look like. Okay, so this one, you have to figure out what is your 4th note in F major. Well, that should be easy. Again, think of the alphabet F. What is the next? G, and then you have A and B. Well, in this case, B flat, right? Because you're in F major. So that's your 4th note. And if you keep going, your 5th note is going to be C. So you need to write B flat. How can you find B flat from F? Well, that should be pretty easy as well. So if that's your F, you already know that. That would be your G. That would be your A. So that's your B flat. And you don't need to write flat. Why? Because you already have it in the key signature. So you just leave it as it is, okay? So I'm going to erase that so you don't get confused. Okay, again, write B and then add 2 more parts to it, 2 more notes. That's how you figure out your chord of 4th step. Okay, do you think you can figure out the chord of 5th step? Okay, so you need just the 5th step in F. In this case, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's your 5. So you need C. Okay, you can actually write middle C if you want. Okay, I'm not going to do it for you, but you go ahead and give it a try. Well, this one, I hope that should be easy. Just a reminder that this equals 4 beats, the whole note. That equals 2 beats. The quarter note equals 1 beat. 8th note is equal half of the beat. But when you join them together like this, they actually going to equal half plus half equals, right? So it's a quarter beat. So that equals 1. Okay, so let's look at this one. You need 4 quarter notes. How many you already have? You have, this is 1, right? That takes 2 beats. So you have 1 plus 2. So you need 4. How much more you need? You need this one, the quarter note. So you're going to write the quarter note. Hopefully that makes sense, okay? And that's going to be 1 plus 2 plus 1. That adds up to 4. So figure out this part and this part by yourself. What note? You need only one note to add up to 4 beats, okay? Let's see. Did we do everything on this page? I think we did. Okay, let's keep moving. Rhythm. Oh, this one is a little bit more trickier because of the dotted things. Okay, but I'm gonna explain it, just how it all works. Just so again, remember, where should I write it? Okay, I'm gonna write it right here. So this equals 4. And we also have sometimes the silence in music. It's as much as important as the notes as well. And we are using this kind of rest to represent 4 beats, okay? If this one is equal 2 beats, we're using this kind of rest to represent 2 beats of silence. Okay, this one is equal, this equal 1 and equal this kind of rest, okay? This one. Okay. If you keep going, like 8th note is equal half of the beat, and also this kind of rest, okay? This one, for example. And let's say if you have 2 8th notes like this, that's going to be equal, half plus half gives you 1, okay? And it's never going to be written like this. Yeah, you're usually going to get just like quarter rest anyway. Well, but when you have something like this, dotted quarter note and 8th note put together, remember, this is a half of the beat, right? But your dot is adding another half to the quarter note. So you have half and half, and also you have a quarter note if you think about that without dot. So you have 1 plus half plus half. So how many total? You have 2 beats in this case, okay? So this is going to be your little cheat sheet to look at this one. So you already know, we just know this is equal 2 beats. And this rest that looks like a head, a little head, it equals 2. So what is 2 plus 2? Equals 4, right? So that's what you're going to write. You're not going to write 2 plus 2 because you're going to do all those calculations either in your head or the separate piece of paper. You're just going to write 4, okay? So go ahead and try to use this to solve the rest, okay? So as of definitions, I'm going to tell them to you so you know them. So this one we call pianissima, which is very soft. This one is ritardando, which means gradually slower. We're slowing down. Dynamics are definitely symbols for loud and soft. And when you see this sign, what you have to do is to play notes octave higher. So for example, if you see middle C, and then you see an octave sign above that, so that means you're not going to play middle C. You're going to play C above that. So here's the middle C, but you're going to move it up an octave. So you're going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and play the next C, okay? So this one looks like a little I, and that means to hold the note longer. And there is an Italian word for that that's called fermata, fermata, okay? So legato actually means smooth and connected. And this one called tenuto, and it means to hold note for the full value, so the notes kind of have a little bit more heavier weight. This one called fortissimo, which is double forte, right? And this one called crescendo, all Italian words, that means gradually louder. Okay, let's keep moving and see. Ooh, this one is the kind of a hard one, but let's see if we can try to figure it out. Okay, so it says, check or write the answer to following questions about the music above. How many beats are in each measure? Well, let's count. You know the quarter note is equal 1, another quarter note 1, 1. How many do you have? You have 3 beats, so that's what you're going to write, okay? Let's move on. According to the key signatures and notes in the last measure, what is the major key? Okay, let's look at the last measure. In this case, it's this one, okay? And the key signature, do you see? The key signature right here, right? So then that means any signs after the treble and bass clef is empty. There is nothing in that, right? So, and going back to your circle of fifths, what is the key with the 0, sharps, or flats? What is the key with 0? Oh, it's this one, C, right? So remember to use your circle of fifths in this case. That's going to be much, much easier. Also, sometimes it could be relative minor, which is going to be A minor, but you have to worry about that. Just look at the last notes right here in the last measure. What do you have? You have middle C right here, okay? What else do you have? Remember, this line, we call it F line. What is above F is G, right? And then what else you have? What is below F is E, and this one is low C, right? So you have C, E, G, and another C, and you have right there. If I don't know if you know this note, but if you do, remember this is G, A, B. What is this? This is C. That's another C. How many C's do you have? You have like 3 of them. So that's going to actually tell you with 0, sharps, or flat that you are not in F major, because F major would have B flat, not in D major because that would have 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. But you are where? Think about that and use circle of fifths and try to answer without me helping more. What is the loudest dynamic in this example? Oh, well, let's look. I think I'm just going to remind you. So piano is soft. Crescendo is gradually getting louder. Mezzo piano is medium soft. And what else is there? There's mezzo forte. Mezzo forte is medium loud, okay? So let's see. What do you have here? What do you have to choose? Okay, check the correct box chord. Okay, A minor, D major, D minor. Okay, let's move on and see, then find the box chord right there. Okay, this one might be a little bit tricky because your top note, if you remember, this is F, this would be G, so this top note is A. So you might think, oh, it's an A chord because it starts in A. Well, that's not true. We usually count in this case, we're going to count to the last note. So what is this note? If you skip down from A, so that would be G, that is F, then you skip down, that would be E, and you end up on D. So you have A, F, and D. So what choices do you have in this case? You have either A minor, D major, or D minor. So let's see, maybe it is A minor, right? Because you have A in that. But remember, we start chords from this note, okay? So A, and then we skip alphabetically. So what notes are going to be in the A minor? It's going to be A. Then you skip, you have C, then you skip. Another one, you skip D, you have E. Those are chords in A minor. So this one, let's compare to what we just did. We have A, F, and D. Well, not going to work, right? So it's definitely not an A minor. So we're going to cross it out. Let's see, maybe it's D major. So for D major, if you remember, well, maybe not. For D major, you need D, then you're going to skip. And remember, you need 2 whole steps. So it's going to be F sharp and A. Do you have F sharp in there? Well, no, not really. You have just F natural. So the last choice you have, think about that and try to answer it without me helping more. Now let's find another boxed chord. Let's see. Oh, this one. Oh, for this one, we already written the notes. You have C, you have E, and you have G, right? That's your boxed chord. Let's see. So it's definitely not A minor because we don't have any A's in there. Is it G major because it has G in that? That's a good question, but let's try to figure out what notes are going to be in G major. So you definitely have G, right? Then you have to skip up. It's going to be B, then skip another. You're going to skip C and D. So those are notes on G major. So not this chord, not G major. Okay, think what is going to be the last one. Okay, name the circled intervals. Second, third. Well, that should be, you should be able to do very easy. Okay, so that's the first circle. And remember, you have to count spaces and lines. So that's your 1. And here's your 2. So you have a second in this case. So find B, find C, and put your answers down here for A, B, and C. And I'm going to do the separate tutorial for the oral skills, but I hope that was helpful.